This episode is brought to you by Nordstrom. Summer's almost out and fall's calling. Luckily, Nordstrom has everything you need for the season ahead, all under $100. Discover new arrivals from your favorite brands like Mango, Princess Polly, Wave, Free People, BDG, and more. Whether you're planning a last-minute getaway, heading back to class, or refreshing your office looks, you'll find the latest trends and beauty must-haves without breaking your budget. It's easy, too, with free shipping, free returns, and in-store order pickup. Shop today, in stores, and at Nordstrom.com.
This episode is brought to you by Espolón Tequila. Slow, sticky, snoozy. They call these the dog days of summer. But Espolón? They don't do boring. Welcome to the Marg Days. Espolón Tequila. 100% blue Weber agave, born to shake up your summer. Just add lime, agave, and a little attitude. Visit espolontequila.com. Espolón Tequila, 40% alcohol, volume 80 proof. Copyright 2025 Campari America, New York, New York. Drink responsibly.
This episode is brought to you by Amazon Prime. From streaming to shopping, Prime helps you get more out of your passions. So whether you're a fan of true crime or prefer a nail-biting novel from time to time, with services like Prime Video, Amazon Music, and fast free delivery, Prime makes it easy to get more out of whatever you're into or getting into. Visit Amazon.com/Prime to learn more.
Hello and welcome back, fellow travelers of Tsushima, to episode 11 of the Ghost of Tsushima Yotei Gamecast. I'm your host, Andrew Zink, and I'm super excited for this episode 11, which is going to be Act 2, Main Ally Missions, Part 2. So we're going to cover the 4 Yuna tales in Act 2, and the next 4 Lady Masako tales in Act 2 as well. Despite it being only 8 quests, and in a lot of these episodes we do 10 quests, sometimes 11, these 8 quests can take a little while, so we're just going to dive right in, and we're going to start with the 4 Yuna tales. Now, there were no Yuna tales in Act 1 as, main character side quests, because I think it's because you did a lot of main storyline quests with Yuna. So, yeah, you're going to dive into Yuna's background here. So the first quest with Yuna in Act 2 is called the Tale of Yuna. So this quest takes place in Atsuna Prefecture. And so it opens up for you after completing the very first intro quest to Act 2, A New Horizon. So you start by searching for Yuna near the Atsuna border. And then you find her, and she's inspecting the wreckage of a burning cart. So then a cutscene starts, and so Jin and Yuna are talking, and Yuna says that the attack on the cart was from a Mongol warlord named Altan. And she says that she heard stories from Atsuna that he has been stealing supplies and brutalizing people in the Atsuna prefecture. So Yuna says that an old friend of hers runs an inn down the road and that she can't leave her. And so she wants to go make sure she's okay and save her, basically. So Jin agrees. So then you start traveling to the inn, and this is kind of a gray and rainy quest. A lot of the atmospheres you're going to find in the Yuna quests are pretty dark. They're not very sunlit or in the daytime or anything like that. So Yuna then says that her friend's name is Ichi and that they've been friends since they were kids. So Yuna says that Ichi taught her how to survive, but they haven't seen each other in a long time. So that's good context to have going into this. So then you arrive at the inn and you start scouting from this small hill next to it. So this inn is a pretty big building, but let me just tell y'all right now, this whole area around the inn, it is abandoned of joy. In addition to it being like foggy, gray, rainy, dark, there's a pile of burned bodies in front of the inn. There's a bunch of bodies that have been impaled on spears all around the inn, and then there's like bodies hung from trees around there, and they're burned. So as if one wasn't enough, they had to do both. There's Mongols patrolling around. And so what you're about to find throughout these 4 quests is that these are all Altan's Mongol soldiers specifically. So they're really showing you that this guy, Altan, he is not a good guy. Not a good guy at all. I mean, really, most of the Mongols aren't, but, This is an especially bad big bad that we're finding here. So, yeah, so you see the Mongols patrolling around the inn, and there is a villager being made to work kind of right out in front of the inn. So, other than that, it's pretty much abandoned. So, what you do is you sneak down the hill and you have to go talk to the villager. And, they figure that the villager might be able to give Yuna and Jin some information. So, when you go down and talk to him, he turns around and the villager's kind of startled. And you can just sneak and, the Mongols won't see you. So he says right away, like, what's a samurai doing here? And he doesn't want to talk to Jin and Yuna because he says that he'll get in trouble. So then Yuna just like chimes in and asks him if Ichi is inside. And then this guy shouts for the guards. I was mad about this. He then just shouts for the guards to get their attention. And I was like, dude, I mean, really? You're going to give us up like that? So then he starts to run away after shouting for the guards. Yuna calls him a traitor and shoots him in the back with an arrow, and then he's dead, just right there on the ground. And I gotta say, I mean, I'm not happy with this guy, but I wasn't sure if I would have shot him in the back like that. But Yuna she just went ahead and did it. So yeah, and you're gonna start to see kind of a new side of Yuna throughout these quests. Kind of reminds me of Lady Masako. Just as you see, they start to be motivated by anger a little more, and this is kind of the first sign of that I saw in this quest. So yeah, then the Mongols charge out and you have a fight scene with them. So, there's 6 or 7 of the Mongols, and it doesn't take too long to clear them. One thing I wanted to note is that I felt like the Mongols looked really cool in the rain. And one thing that was, what was cool about it is that it felt like you could see that their uniforms were kind of dark, like they were soaked wet. And I just thought that was really cool effects to have in the game. They have tons of stuff like that in The Last of Us, where it's like the character's hair when wet is slightly different and you can kind of see it from when it's dry. So I just want to shout out the devs for how cool that is. So after you clear the Mongols, Yuna starts like shouting for Ichi, and then Ichi comes out in front of the inn to talk to you. So she's there. That's cool. So then a cutscene starts. And the first thing I wanted to note for this is that everybody's just standing outside in the pouring rain for this whole conversation. And when I was watching this, I was like, guys, can we stand inside maybe? Anyway, Ichi seems super unhappy to see them. I mean, maybe it's because they're standing in the rain for this conversation. But so then Yuna says that they came to save her. And Ichi says, well, now I'm dead because I was keeping the Mongols drunk and distracted. But when Altan hears about the fact that all his soldiers are dead, now he's going to kill me. So then Yuna realizes, and she says that Ichi was working with the Mongols. But Ichi then says, that she was just trying to survive. And Yuna basically tells Ichi that she should have fought back. And Ichi says that Yuna should have run away like she always does. So then you get a little bit of saltiness there, we could say. Definitely bitter. She seems very bitter, very strongly bitter. So then Yuna kind of just walks away out of the cutscene. And then Jin tells Ichi that Yuna risked her life to save her. And Ichi then says that Jin should stay away from Yuna. And Jin asks Ichi to tell him where Altan is, but Ichi says that nobody knows. So, there's another sentence or two in this cutscene, but I just want to take a moment to, just talk about some of this. When Yuna says that Ichi was working with the Mongols, that's just one of those cases where I feel like, I don't know. I mean, you run an inn, they've taken over the whole area. I don't know what you're supposed to do. Like, there's just nothing you can do, really. If you can't fight, it's like, you just find your own way to resist. And for her, that was like keeping the Mongols drunk and distracted. But I thought they were being a little overly harsh on Ichi there. But then interesting when, Ichi says that Yuna runs away like she always does. That leaves us to think that they definitely have a long history, and it's clearly not a good history, at least entirely. So yeah, then Ichi says that you can track down Altan's slaver allies to make an example of them to draw him out of hiding. So Ichi asks, Ichi says to ask Yuna about the slavers because she'll remember. So I thought that was interesting. And then Jin, tries to say that he doesn't know what happened in the past, that Yuna just wants to help. And then Ichi says, well, Yuna had her chance. And that's the end of the cutscene. So yeah, we're going to talk about what all this means, but I was definitely surprised to see this at first because I don't know, I kind of thought most people who knew Yuna would think highly of her, everyone except Lord Shimura, but Shimura is not cool anyway, so whatever. And but so I was curious to see where this goes. So then you go talk to Yuna in the cutscene, and this is the last part of this whole quest. And then Jin says that they have to go after Altan's slaver allies. And Yuna says that the allies are called the Mamushi brothers, and she hints that she knows them. And she says that they run a slave farm near a river nearby. So Jin then says that he'll meet Yuna there, and she says thank you. And it's kind of like a very meaningful thank you. And that's the end of the quest. So yeah, that was a kind of short quest, but it was a good intro to this whole quest line. And you see that, clearly Yuna has some sort of history with these slavers, and it seems like it's going to kind of revolve around that and, trying to track down Altan, this Mongol leader who is cooperating, I guess, with some local Japanese slavers. So the next quest is called Silent Death. And so you start this quest meeting Yuna in the Atsuna prefecture. And so this time you're meeting her just outside the Mamushi farmstead. So you're going there to find the Mamushi brothers at the slaveholding area. So you arrive and you find Yuna hiding next to a tree. And she's on the outskirts of the Mamushi farmstead. So they have walls in sight. So then the cutscene starts and Jin comments that this place looks like a fortress. And it definitely is. When they said farmstead, I don't know. I thought it'd be open area and there wouldn't be that many soldiers around, but this place is a fortress. And Yuna then says it's to protect what's happening inside their slave camp because they don't want people to see. And Jin then realizes that she's been inside, and she says that her and Taka are the only ones who've ever escaped from there. And she says they were enslaved as children and they left years ago. So right away, I thought this was a huge development for the story. I mean, character-wise for, Yuna and Taka, that's a pretty huge characterization, part of their backgrounds to find out. So Yuna then says that the three Mamushi brothers are named Kichizo, Manzo, and Taizo. And Jin then says that he'll kill them all to draw out Altan. So then the quest starts. The quest officially starts, when you get the Japanese lettering and the cool music that pops up on the screen. So then you approach the walls with Yuna, and as you get close to the walls, the whole outside of the walls, there's this huge field, and there's just burned and dead bodies impaled on spears every 5 feet outside the walls. And so this was super brutal, terribly sad. And all the ground is burned away. All the grass is blackened and everything. Really, really rough, brutal scene here. And I gotta say, I don't think I'd seen anything quite like this in this game so far. And then Yuna comments on it. She says that they were always cruel, but not like this. And so they talk about, the presence of Altan, that Altan is kind of bringing this out in them. So just, again, interesting to know that this particular warlord is especially cruel and bad who you're going up against, which for me just gave me extra motivation to want to get through these quests and take this guy down. So yeah, as you approach the walls and you get closer, Yuna basically freezes up and says that she can't go in there, and she has a mental block. And Jin, as just an incredible warrior, but a great friend and a great person, says that he'll go alone and he'll handle it. And yeah, I mean, clearly Yuna is, remembering some trauma from this and probably still has some trauma from it. And Yuna asks Jin to make them suffer. And again, that's kind of outside Yuna's character. She's not really a super, I wouldn't say she's a violent person or anything, but she hasn't said anything like that in the game so far, I would say. And she's very clearly stating she wants these people to be hurt. So Jin says that he will take their heads, but Yuna says it's not enough. So Jin decides to kill them where they sleep. That's what they say. And then without being seen, to scare people of the ghost. So you scale up this small rock face, and it kind of lets you into the farmstead pretty easy. So then you get your quest, and the quest is to kill the three brothers, and you can't kill any guards and you can't be seen. So honestly, it doesn't take super long to do this. You can find Taizo inside this large hut housing building, and he's just walking around talking to himself and saying, they can take over the main roads with the Mongol forces. And so what you can do is you can enter from the top, and then there's a second floor up there that a ladder leads up to, and you can air assassinate him from up there. So that's pretty quick and easy. There's no guards inside this building or anything. There's some outside, but they won't see you at all. So after you take out Taizo, you then have to right trigger to cut off his head. And this was kind of like a comical scene where the screen goes black and then it makes like this, funny sounding flesh sound, just like, and then, then you have his head in a bag in your inventory. So, then you move on, and it's kind of the same with Kichizo. You find him in another large hut not too far away. You can air assassinate from the top. I actually snuck in from the bottom, the ground floor on this. You can just sneak up behind him. I mean, these people aren't soldiers. Like, they're kind of dressed like bandits, and they're not hard to defeat. So then you cut off Kichizo's head, put that in your inventory. And then the last brother is Manzo. And you find him out in this open field with like crops, and he's like berating slaves who are working and telling them to work faster and that they have to feed the Mongols. So you can sneak through the grass and then kill him. I'd say this one is probably like one of the hardest ones that you can get caught on, mainly just because it's open. I mean, you can sneak through the grass, but there's more Mongols around. You just got to be a little more careful. So after you kill Manzo, you cut off his head, and then you can tell the peasants or the people working there to run, and they're like, "Oh my God, Manzo's dead." So then you sneak back to Yuna through the camp, and you exit the camp, and then you get a cutscene with Yuna. It's the final one for this quest, and Jin then says that they're gonna make an example of the Mamushi brothers, and Yuna recollects how evil they were, and she is having a lot of guilt for not doing anything to stop them in the previous years. And so then the screen cuts to black, and the 3 heads of the Mamushi brothers are like posted up on a stick. I gotta say, like, this was definitely new for Yuna and Jin. I mean, they haven't really done something quite like this in this game so far. So Yuna and Jin then hide in the grass, and Yuna screams to draw the Mongols out, because what they want to do is like freak out the Mongols and have them run back to Altan, so they tell him what happened. So then the Mongols, it shows you like this cutscene where they run out and they then run away in fear, seeing the heads, and Yuna says it won't be enough to draw out Altan because the slaves came from someone else named the Black Wolf. So then Yuna says that she'll find the Black Wolf, and he's going to be along the coast near his old hunting grounds, and she says to meet her there for the next quest. And that is the end of this quest, Silent Death. So, I mean, I thought Yuna saying like that she has guilt for not being able to stop them, the slavers, in the previous years after they escaped. I thought that was really fascinating. And it is kind of like a fascinating moral conundrum where it's like, that something really bad is happening in a certain place. But I would say, like, for Yuna, I mean, the best you can do is try and marshal up support from other people and go back there. But I mean, it has to be hard if you're not nobility and, you're considered like a thief or a peasant or part of the lower classes. And like, I don't know, you can't just walk around saying, hey, join me to liberate this place. Like, that's not really how it worked in this time period. But really fascinating that they would choose to include this as part of her character and in this quest. And again, it just really expands the world and just gives you a sense of some of the realistic natures and some of the awful things that exist that people have to figure out how to navigate, and the types of trauma that can leave with people for a really long time. So I enjoyed this quest a lot. Well, I can't say I loved it, but I thought it added important things to the game. So the next quest is called the Black Wolf. And so you find Yuna on the road in Atsuna, and she's holding a child's doll, and it's stained with blood. So then the cutscene starts, and Yuna says that the Black Wolf enslaves children and sells them to the Mamushi brothers. And her and Jin are both just really upset by this, as am I, might add. And she says that his camp is down this road, and there's a lot of Mongols there. So Yuna says that she wants to kill him because she had a chance many years ago, and she was a child, or like a teenager, but she was just too young and just couldn't do it, basically. So then Jin says that he'll be there to help. So at this point, you start rolling out and you head over there, and you come upon a Mongol scout like standing around a fire at the outskirts of the camp, and it's just him. So you have to kill him first, then you can move on. And you just assassinate him. You can do an air assassinate from behind him. It's not super hard. And then Yuna tells you that after leaving Yarikawa, that her and Taka came to this camp for refuge, and the Black Wolf took them in and then captured them. So that's really, really messed up. Wow. And yeah, I mean, this fills in a pretty important part of the story. And Yuna says, like, she says earlier in the game that they left Yarikawa because she felt like Taka wasn't safe around their mom. And I feel like this is hugely important. And directly from that, her and Taka end up enslaved for years. And I mean, wow. Like, just that's just an incredibly crazy and sad story. And obviously just shows you what can happen in this time period. If you stray too far from home, you don't know who you're going to run into, and there's just not as much of a centralized government. So obviously it's easier for people to get away with awful operations like this. And if you don't have parents who are looking out for you, then it's much more likely that you could be someone who ends up in a situation like this. So that's all really crazy. So at this point, you then walk up to the Black Wolf's camp, and this is the time where you do a standoff. You're not sneaking around for this. You do a standoff, totally sick, screw all these guys. And yeah, if you're wearing the Sakai family armor, you can kill like 4 or 5 or 6 people in the standoff, depending on how much you've upgraded it. And so then you move on, you start fighting in the camp after the standoff. There's only like a squad of like 6 or 7 Mongols in total. So after the standoff, there's not too many more there. This was a little underwhelming, actually. I thought there'd be more Mongols. But so after you clear the Mongols, there's no Black Wolf there. So Yuna and Jin then spot a big Mongol ship offshore where the Black Wolf is hiding. So at this point, the screen cuts to black, and you take a rowboat there, and you then get on the deck, and Yuna and Jin are mad. Like, they hop up on the deck, and they're just like, let's draw him out by killing Mongols. And Jin says, like, Mongol screams will draw him out. So then, yeah, Mongols run out, and you just kind of clear them, and then after you clear, like, two waves of Mongols, the Black Wolf, like, comes out. And he honestly looks like kind of an older guy. He's just wearing like robes, and he's not really super dangerous. He's not armed at all. And so he shows up for a cutscene and says, whatever you think I did, like, Altan forced me to. And so he tries to lie, and Yuna like screams in his face. And I was like, hell yeah. I mean, I feel exactly the same. And so then he tells him who she is. And he says he remembers... He says that Taka was his favorite, and right away I thought that was super gross. And then he says, the way I remember it is that you brought Taka to me. And then Yuna just, like, stabs him. Like, she just kills him right then and there. And I was like, bye, dude. Yeah, we do not need any more of you. So then Yuna and Jin get off the boat, and as they're getting off, they decide to burn it. And then, you know, the screen cuts to black, and they're watching this really big Mongol transport ship burn from the shore. And then Yuna says it was true, what the Black Wolf says, that, you know, they came to him for refuge, and that Yuna kind of led them there, and the Black Wolf got them drunk and, like, took them captive, basically. And so Yuna kind of starts crying and getting really emotional and saying how scared she was as a kid, and that she, like, had a chance to kill the Black Wolf, but, you know, she was a kid, and she just she couldn't. And so Jin basically tries to comfort her by saying that he's dead now, but Yuna says she needs some time, and that she'll meet Jin back at the inn. And, yeah, and that's the end of the quest. So, yeah, I mean, this whole quest line is definitely pretty dark, and, there's a lot of quests in this game that definitely aren't the most uplifting quests in the world, but yeah, this one is definitely an exceptionally dark and sad. There's no doubt about it, and I just try to imagine how difficult it would be to be a kid in this situation. And Jin kind of had something like this, where they show you this in the flashback, where, like, he's a teenager when his father's getting killed, and, like, he kind of has this moment where he, like, could step out and confront his attacker, but it's like he's a teenager. I mean, you just can't. The overwhelming majority of kids are just not gonna be prepared for a situation like that, like mentally or physically, or mentally or emotionally, let alone physically. Like if depending on how old you are, like if you're gonna be able to take on a full-grown adult. So I feel like they're confronting you with some really serious issues in this quest, and yeah, just want to mention that. So the final quest for this storyline, for the Yuna quest, is called Message in Blood. And so at this point, you meet Yuna at Ichi's inn, and it's nighttime, it's rainy, still very dark, not an uplifting scene, not an uplifting quest line, really. So you find Yuna and Ichi inside, and they're upstairs in the inn. And so then the cutscene starts, and Ichi is like hurt. She's like grabbing herself. And Yuna says that Altan got their message. And Ichi says that Altan said to meet him at a camp near the Kushi border. Oh boy, let's get this guy. And Jin says that they will go for justice. And Ichi says, well, you've brought nothing but death so far. And I was like, dude, are you kidding me? Like, really? I mean, we're trying to free the island of invasion. Like, I really don't need this right now. And then Jin says, that they, they'll take revenge or die trying. And Ichi says, well, that's the duty of a samurai, but Yuna's just a thief, and her promises are worthless, just like her. And I was like, yo, all these people coming at Yuna, y'all gotta back off. I mean, whatever happened, like, we're trying to help. I mean, how many other people are going to be literally fighting off the Mongols to free you? Like, yeah, so that's my reaction to all this. So then the quest starts right here, and you get on your horses and start riding. What was interesting is the part of the quest is actually you sit on your horse, and the quest is to wait for Yuna to mount her horse. You can leave. So it's almost like Yuna is like taking an extra moment inside the inn to just emotionally compose herself or something. So then as you start riding, they both, Yuna and Jin, acknowledge that they're riding into a trap. And Jin basically just says, like, we have to be ready for anything. And, I just want to make sure you're in a good headspace and, you're going to be aware and making smart choices. So Yuna then reveals that they knew Ichi from the Mamushi slave camp, and they escaped because of Ichi. And she says that they all swore to get out together, but when they were running away, that Ichi got caught and Yuna and Taka got away. And Yuna basically tells you that she's like lived with this incredible guilt since then. And yeah, I thought that was, what a terrible situation. And just...
This episode is brought to you by Wayfair. Podcasts follow us everywhere. Whether you're cooking in the kitchen, chilling in the living room, or pretending to fold laundry in the bedroom. And with Wayfair, every one of those rooms can tell a story of its own. Their curated collections of furniture styles and prices make Wayfair the trusted destination to turn your home into your happy place. Shop everything home at wayfair.com with free and easy delivery straight to your door.
Wayfair, every style, every home.
Now at Chipotle, our all-new Chipotle Honey Chicken brings Chipotle heat with a touch of sweet. Seared smoked peppers and savory Mexican spices, blended with a hint of pure honey for a perfectly balanced sauce. All combined with fresh, tender chicken hot off the grill, served up in your favorite burrito or bowl. New Chipotle Honey Chicken takes heat and sweet to a whole new level. But it's only at Chipotle for a limited time. Order now in the app for pickup or delivery. Chipotle, for real.
Crazy characterization part of the story to add in there. And then they give you a dialogue choice, and you can say you either right to run or you can say you should have gone back. And I just tried to stay true to what I felt on this, and I chose you were right to run. And Jin basically, defends Yuna, saying that you were kids and you couldn't have taken on like that slave camp. And Jin says that, that she has to let go of her guilt and focus on killing Altan. So, yeah, I picked that because I definitely agree with Jin, where it's like, you're kids. Like, again, even if you escape and even if you're somewhat capable, like, most teenagers probably aren't going to know how to go, like, rally together a village or go appeal to, a liege lord or a feudal lord to like go free this place. So just really, really tough situation. And I mean, the trauma of what that would do to kids in this situation is just really terrible to think about. And again, I admire the devs for just putting a quest that's so heavy in the game. It just makes you think. So, yeah, then you arrive at Altan's camp, and it's dark and stormy. It's nighttime, and so you sneak in, and you can sneak in and kill like 2 guards at the front gate, then run in. And so this is actually a fairly big camp. Like there's a lot more soldiers than at the Black Wolf's camp before, and you kind of spend a while clearing the guards. Like you're just running around, getting archers up in towers. Highly recommend explosives. Always recommend explosives in this game. Plus they're just funny. So, what's better than that? And then after you clear all the guards, you hear a horn blow, and then you talk with Yuna. And Altan and the soldiers are riding up to the front of the camp on horseback. And then you get a cutscene with Altan. And so much like the other Mongol generals, he's wearing this big, thick golden armor. And Jin tells him that he's going to face justice. And Altan tries to turn it on Jin and basically tells Jin that he's dishonorable too as the ghost. And he has this guy has some nerve. He says, no wonder the Straw Hat Ryuzo turned on you. And Jin basically just goes, all right, that's enough. I'm going to kill you. Not listening to this. And yeah, like, actually, I'll say one more thing and then get to this. So then a cool nighttime duel scene starts. This was another moment where there wasn't any music in it, and I wish there was. I just thought that would have made it cool. But so then you fight Altan in this duel scene. He's a real boss. He's got real health bar, and you can't use your explosives. It's a real duel. And so Altan is a swordsman, so you want to be in the swordsman stance. So Altan, throughout this duel, they have these little lines they're saying back and forth to each other. And Altan says that Jin does what he needs to do to survive, but looks down on others who do the same. And he's talking about like himself and the Mongols. And yeah, I just thought there was a lot of BS like that throughout this duel where Altan is just saying like, we're the same, you and I. And it's like, dude, we are literally not the same. Like, do not say that. So then eventually you beat Altan. You kill him in the duel, and then he had like 4 or 5 soldiers that were watching, and then you have to kill them too, and they're pretty quick. So then Ichi shows up, and she says that they killed Altan, and after you start talking with her, she says they killed Altan, and then she says, but the Japanese people are afraid of you now, because of what you did to the Mamushi brothers. And Jin says, like, what do you mean? Like, innocent people have nothing to be afraid of. Like, we're liberating slaves, dude. Like, like, can we please stop with this? All the nonsense of like the ghost maybe being bad. We are liberating slaves, okay? And then Yuna asks her, like, she asks Ichi if she thinks they're monsters, and Ichi like ponders it for a second, says, well, I think you did what you have to do. And then Ichi just says goodbye to Yuna and turns and leaves. And then Jin like worries about crossing the line, says, oh, I don't want our people to be afraid of us. And Yuna says, we're on the right side of this. And then that's the end of the quest. And that means that's the end of this whole storyline. And so that was the Yuna quest. So yeah, I mean, that last part, like, yeah, I just thought all of that was ridiculous. I was like, I mean, no, you shouldn't feel bad about what you did. Like, you're freeing slaves. And if these slavers have spent 20 years doing this on Tsushima, like, oh man, I mean, that is so awful. I mean, no one should have any regrets about any of this. So, yeah, that's the end of the quest. And this quest line, all in all, I kind of couldn't believe that they took the quest this direction and it gave Yuna and Taka such a heavy backstory. And I'll just say, I did all this after I completed Act 3, so Khotun Khan was dead by this point. And when I beat the game, Yuna said, like, oh, meet me in Atsuna and Toyotama, and, we'll... Like, she said that she still had quests, and I just had no idea what they would be, but I definitely didn't think it would be like this. So all in all, I mean, yeah, I thought they were a great quest. They definitely weren't, super sunny and happy and uplifting or anything. And the atmospheres weren't quite as beautiful, traditionally beautiful as some of the other quests, but I thought it was still a worthwhile characterization to have. And man, really just makes me feel even more for Taka. That Taka just seemed like such a good and happy person all in all. And just for him to have gone through what they did and still end up that way is just really amazing. It speaks to the resilience of humans, So yeah, that wraps up the Yuna quest. Now we're going to start on the Lady Masako tales in Act 2. So we're going to be picking up from what we did in Act 1. So there's 4 of these quests in Act 2. The first one is called The Fool, and it takes place in Umugi Prefecture. So you've been to Umugi quite a lot by this point. So you meet Lady Masako outside of Umugi Cove, and you're like kind of after you cross Lady Sanjo's bridge, and that's the long bridge that covers the long big like pond that you have to do to get there. So then you get a cutscene, and Jin and Masako are talking, and Masako says she's been waiting for a while, and Jin right away says, "Oh my God, you need rest. Like you're really running yourself down here." And she says that she needs justice, and she reveals that she's been looking for someone named Omura, and that he supplied the weapons for the attack on her family. So yeah, this is another set of quests where kind of like with the Yuriko quest, Jin is like harping on rest. He's like, "Oh my God, you need to take care of yourself," and it's like, I get he's trying to be a good guy, but especially in this case, it's like, dude, this whole family, this woman's whole family got massacred. Like, I think she's just, you gotta let her lead, and have that be that. So then you start walking, and she says that Omura is rumored to be traveling to Umugi Cove, so she's been camped out watching for him. So then you like get on top of this little stone, like tall stone outcropping, and you can overlook the long bridge entrance to Umugi Cove. So from there, like, you basically start hiding, and you're in like a cutscene. So while you're hiding, Masako says that Omura used to supply the Adachi clan, but she hasn't seen him in 20 years because he cheated them and tried to blame her husband for not paying him enough. And then Masako just says that isn't true. So again, right away, it's like, it's very interesting that, another person who seems to have some history with the Adachi and, has an axe to grind with them is part of this conspiracy. So then nighttime falls, the screen cuts to black, and then you see 2 men who like walk across the bridge to Umugi Cove carrying torches, and Masako says that they both look exactly like Omura did 20 years ago. So then, like, you infer that they're his sons. And so then the 2 men split up, and Masako follows the man going left, and she tells Jin to follow the man going right, who's going to walk through this narrow canyon leading into Umugi Cove that you've been through already, but you're just doing it again. So now you start a follow quest, and yeah, you just follow him into the Umugi Cove entrance, and it's pretty easy to stay hidden on the cliffs above him, like above the canyon, follow him there, and you can use your grappling hook to just like swing across areas and follow him. I actually just walked behind him, and I like barely even hit a lot of times, and that's what I did, and it was fine. So then as you follow him, he's talking to himself, and you don't, as far as I know, you don't ever get a name for who this guy is, or who either of them are. And so he eventually says, he's talking to himself, and he says, "Father, I've avenged our family. Old Adachi is dead, his clan too. Kipe says what I did is shameful, but he doesn't remember what Adachi did to us." So he's very much clear, like he's making it seem like their family are the victims in this. And maybe Kipe is the brother, the guy that he was walking with right there. But yeah, so that's interesting that that's their perspective. Like they're really acting like they were wronged in this. So then you finally you enter Umugi Cove, and you follow him into the actual village, and he tries to go into a tavern for a drink, and they don't let him in Umugi Cove, and they say like he's a thief, and he says, "Oh, I stole those pickled onions years ago." So you're definitely getting a sense that these are unsavory characters with a history of crime and dishonesty. So you can keep following him on the roof of through like the Umugi Cove buildings. Then eventually you kind of get to the end of the housing where Umugi Cove starts to turn into like the swamp that leads out to the ocean that gives it the protection that it does. And so then the next quest is to find Masako. So then you find her, and she's like perched on top of a rock overlooking Umugi, and you find her there. And so Jin tells her that the guy he just followed was definitely involved in the conspiracy and spoke of revenge against the Adachi clan. So Jin says that he's on his way to meet the guy who hired him to help in the conspiracy, and they decided to follow. So then you start this following quest, and and you sneak a little bit, and you see the guy that you've been tailing meet up with who I think is the brother, Kipe, and they meet up on this like raised dock walkway. And so Kipe says that he wants out and he wants to be done with this. And the who I'm just gonna call him the bad guy says that he's just getting cold feet, and he says like, you know, after like what Kipe is saying, that what they did isn't right. And then the bad guy gets angry and says, what Adachi did to father isn't right. Our family ended up on the street and father's drinking. And so he's clearly blaming Adachi for everything that went wrong for them. And then Kipe says, like, father stole from Adachi and father was always a drunk. And I did in this moment, I was like, all right, at least someone's being honest here about this situation. So yeah, then the bad guy says, like, if they can pull this off, the other guy can use the money to escape and leave the Mongol behind. And that's enough for, Kipe basically to go along with it. But yeah, I thought that was interesting that this guy was like trying to play victim, and then when confronted with facts, that didn't work. So then he just switches over to self-interest and is like, look, we're going to get money out of this, so just join me. And that's pretty much it. So then you follow them for a while on this like narrow, high walkway through Imugi Cove that like leads out towards the shore. And so, yeah, you can jump down, follow them underneath the walkway. I thought that was actually kind of cool. But you just have to stay hidden. And you hear them saying that they're meeting the other person, some other individual at the beach, and that they agreed to meet him quickly because... So what they're saying is that the person who hired them to help in the conspiracy wanted to meet them quickly, Omura and Kipe, to stop word from getting out. So... yeah, then Kipe says that he doesn't know how Omura has like slept after that job because there were children that they killed. And Omura says like, you know, I didn't kill them. I just provided the weapons. And it's like, yeah, okay, dude. And so then Kipe says that he heard that Lady Masako survived. And Omura says, oh, well, you know, what can that old lady do to us? And Masako says like, I should just kill this guy right now. But... yeah, so then you arrive at this swampy beach area, and, Omura and Kipe walk up, and there's a group of people meeting them. And so they kind of look like bandits. And, Kipe says that he thought they were all coming to meet alone. And Omura says, oh, the soldiers are just for show. And the whole time, Omura is so dumbly overconfident. Like, it's one of those things where, like, it's truly dumb. Like, how he's thinking about this, being like, oh yeah, we're gonna be fine, and he just has this attitude the whole quest as you're following him. Then he says, oh, he is a lord after all, of course he'd have soldiers. And then as they're walking up, so at this point you're like out of this forest and you're in like a clear open swampy area, but Masako and Jin hide behind a rock. And Masako says, these fools are walking into a trap. And this is a moment where I definitely just laughed. Like, the delivery was very good on this. So then you wait and watch from behind a rock. And then a cutscene starts, and the bandit asks which one of them is Omura. And after saying, like, who, the bandits then stab both of them, and they just fall over dead right there. And I have to say, I was like, I mean, why even... I guess if you want to make sure that one of them is Omura, that's good, but if you're going to kill them both, then, you don't really need to know which one's which. But yeah, it kind of sucks for Kipe, too. I mean, like, he didn't like the whole thing, but, he got roped into it by a bad influence, and then ended up stabbed and dead in a swamp. So that sucks. Yeah, so then Masako just runs straight out to fight the bandits. Very Lady Masako. And, if you can just stand back and shoot arrows while Masako fights them. So that was funny. So then you clear them, and after you clear them, you find a letter on the bandit leader. And the letter reads, you are to meet a man named Omura in Umugi Cove. He means to blackmail me. Kill him. I am moving funds from Kushi, and I will pay you upon successful completion. So then you take the letter to Masako, and she has a letter, and the letter was that letter was from Omura's body, and it's still from the same person, this mysterious person coordinating the conspiracy. And that letter reads, "There's no need for threats. I will gladly bring payment to Umugi in exchange for your silence. Until then, know your discretion is appreciated and that you will be generously compensated." So yeah, whoever this person is just straight up lied to Omura to lure him there. And I thought the tones of those two notes were very fascinating. One was like, very cordial and like more trustworthy, and the other was way shorter and more brutal, where it's just like, kill them, kind of like Emperor Palpatine in Star Wars. Yeah, so then you get a cutscene, and Jin says whoever killed Clan Adachi is trying to cover their tracks and tie up loose ends now, and that it seems like they might be desperate for money. So Masako surmises from that they must not lead a wealthy clan, and Jin thinks it's possible that this killer isn't a samurai from any clan and wants to become a samurai and start a clan. So Masako then says, oh, well, that can help me narrow my search, and this is helpful. So Jin, again, tells her to rest. And I was like, dude, can you lay off this, please? And Jin tells her to, she tells Jin to meet her in Kubara for the next conspirator. That's the end of the quest. So, yeah, I thought that was a decent quest, a good way to kick off the Act 2 storyline, and... yeah, I mean, just they're laying the breadcrumbs that there's, a lot of history behind the conspirators and why they're going after the Adachi clan. So the next quest is called The Family Man, and so you meet Masako in the Kubara prefecture at Omi Temple. And I gotta say, I thought Omi Temple was really cool. There's like this massive Buddha statue there, and it's a beautiful temple. It's a daytime quest. There's like some mountains overlooking it. Very beautiful area. Daytime and sunny. And so you arrive to find Masako arguing with this monk named Junshin, and you've encountered him before in the game. He's the guy who runs the survivor camps. So he's saying that doesn't sound like Kajiwara, and Masako's all annoyed. So then you walk up, and the cutscene starts, and Masako says that Kajiwara recruited men for the mission to kill her family, and that his name is on the list of conspirators, and that she knows he lives in this prefecture and lives nearby, but Junshin won't tell her where he lives. So Jin then says that he'll talk to Junshin, and you've had like a good relationship with Junshin. So basically, and this whole thing with Junshin is a very much good cop, bad cop situation, where Jin is going to be the good cop, Masako's the bad cop, and that's kind of how this dynamic is. So Jin speaks with Junshin very nicely and explains the situation. And Junshin says that he fears for Kajiwara's life if Lady Masako finds him, because Kajiwara is a humble fisherman and a loving father, and that he thinks that Masako is blinded by rage. But he agrees that he'll tell Jin where Kajiwara is, as long as it's just talking. So that's what Jin agrees to. So then he tells you that if they take the road leading out of Omi Temple along the coast, you'll find his hut along the beach further up the road. So then you set out with Masako, and she's all annoyed that Junshin wouldn't tell her, but he would tell Jin. And she says that, talking to Junshin was like talking to a stone. So this was just another moment where there was some funny delivery. And Jin says that Junshin is afraid of her. So Masako says that that's good because Kajiwara is cruel and vicious. And she reveals that Kajiwara was a retainer for the Adachi clan, who was dependable and skilled but quick to anger. And she says that they excused his behavior for a long time until Masako caught him beating his wife and daughter, so they dismissed him. And she says that they offered the wife and daughter refuge in their house, but they went back to Kajiwara within a day. Whew, man. Yeah, I mean, right away, I was like, oh, domestic abuser, get this guy out of here, bye. Yeah, so, and really fascinating that, that's what they know about him, but Junshin is convinced that he's like this good-hearted family man sort of person. So yeah, then you're following a road, and then you arrive at this little path that leads down to where his hut is on the beach. So Jin wants to approach with caution to protect Kajiwara's family. So you stealth down, you take the path down the cliff, and you find a squad of Mongols already there. So that's interesting. And so Masako then says that they may have already killed him and the family. So you can kill a couple Mongols from stealth, but then a fight starts, and you have to clear the Mongols. There's only 6 of them or something like that, not too many. So then you investigate the area, and this hut is truly right on the coast. And I thought this was actually really fascinating. That it really does give you an insight to what the life of a fisherman would be like in this time period, in this time frame. You'd have a hut right on the coast. You'd fish, and then you'd bring your fish to market, and that's how you'd try and make some money and try and move your life forward. So I just thought that was a cool side note. So yeah, then eventually you clear the Mongols and you have to investigate inside the house for clues to where Kajiwara might be. You find silk inside, and Masako says this is more than a humble fisherman can afford, that's for sure. And Masako is just salty about everything. She's really mad at Junshin. She's like, yeah, we knew this guy was lying to you. Like, so then you find a fisherman's blade covered in blood, and then you find the bodies of Kajiwara's wife and daughter, and they're stabbed and dead. And this was just another really brutal scene. They're just stabbed and dead in the corner of the hut, and Kajiwara is not there. So then you find footprints to follow, and you truly just follow the footprints like 30 feet like along this cliff face till you round the bend on the cliff face, and then you find Kajiwara hiding on the side of this cliff. And it's like he's on the beach, but you know, he's next to the cliff. And he says that he says that he killed his family out of love because they asked for him to kill them instead of the Mongols doing it. And Jin and Masako don't believe him. Masako immediately grills him about who hired him to kill her family. And she says, you know, after you tell me, I'll kill you lovingly like you did with your family. And I was like, damn, she really got him right there. And Kajiwara says, you know, that whoever the person was that hired him, or who's coordinating the whole thing, that he understood how it feels to be ruined by you and driven to poverty. And then Masako just cuts him down right there. Yeah, again, very Lady Masako. I mean, if I was taking a shot for every time Masako was cutting down people who have leads on this quest, I'd be trashed on this podcast, y'all. But yeah, and then they realized that all the attackers on this conspiracy are bonded by hate for the Adachi clan, but Masako can't think of who it would be who's organizing it. So I have to say, I think this is a really cool like storyline. Just that like you're slowly getting closer and closer, but you're like, who is this? Like, who would this person be that wants to set out to do this? And yeah, just a couple notes on like, Kajiwara killing his family and the Mongols and everything. Like, I just don't trust this guy, so I don't believe him. Why he would kill his wife and daughter, I truly don't understand. And maybe he's just truly just an awful, awful sick person. I do have to say there's many stories throughout history of various invaders arriving and like certain like family members poisoning themselves or family members killing their other family members so that they wouldn't be taken captive. There is historical precedent for that. But I don't know. I feel like there's not enough clues one way or the other to know what the actual truth is in this situation. So yeah, that's the end of this quest right then and there. So yeah, I mean, I thought it was a decent quest. And yeah, with Junshin, I was like, dude, come on. Like, just tell us where these people are. So yeah, so the next quest is called The Thief. And we're almost done here with the Act 2 storylines for Masako and in this episode. And in The Thief, you meet Masako at the Koshimizu farmstead in Kushi. And this is a daytime quest, but it's kind of gray out. One quick note on this. This is a farmstead that is liberated, that you have to free the farmstead from the Mongols. And you just like, it's not a quest, but you just run around and like kill them and then it's freed. And then it shows everyone like moving back in. So I did this just on my own. When I was playing Act 2, I didn't know this quest was going to be here. So a part of me has wondered, like, what would happen if you didn't clear this first, and then you get to this point in the Masako quest? Like, would it be part of the quest to clear the farmstead? And I don't know the answer to that, but just a small thing we're covering here as part of the lore in the game. So then you arrive and you find Masako arguing with Junshin again about information and Koshimizu farmstead. And right away I was like, Junshin, what are you doing here, dude? Like, why are you just all over the place in this game? You followed us from Act 1 in Izuhara, bro. But so then you talk with Junshin. He says that Masako is looking for someone that she's angry that he can't help. And Jin tells Junshin what happened with Kajiwara. And Junshin says, oh, I was foolish. You know, I can't believe that, but this time I really don't know, like, who the person is that she's after. So, you know, he thanks you for ridding the farmstead of the Mongols, and again, I was like, I wonder what the dialogue is if you don't do that, or, like, how this quest happens. But, so, then you start a cutscene with Masako, and Masako is talking with two villagers, and she says that it's a thief on the, like, and she's getting information from them, and, you know, so then you start the cutscene with her, and she tells you that it's a thief on the list, that she can handle it, but Jin insists on helping. And weirdly, she doesn't want you to help, but Jin says, like, yeah, but the villagers are just telling you that, like, you know, there were heavily armed people leaving with her out of the village. So Jin, like, wants to help, and she asks for Jin's discretion. on this particular mission. And it seems kind of like there's something up. So I thought that was interesting. So, yeah, then you start riding with Lady Masako, and, Jin asks who the thief is, and Masako says that she looted the Adachi estate after the attack and stole their family heirlooms items. And so she says that this person's name is Mai, and that Mai was their former servant. She says that 3 years ago, Lord Adachi caught her stealing and wanted to have her flogged, but Masako convinced him to exile her instead. And Jin then says it sounds like that Masako misses her and like kind of cares for her. And Masako says that Mai was a dear friend and the betrayal stings more than the others. One quick thing I just want to mention, flogging is basically just like whipping for anybody who doesn't know that. But obviously it can be, extremely brutal. And there's absolutely cases of people dying from flogging, basically. Like you could theoretically bleed out, or it could get infected later on. So those are the small things in history that people, don't really think about as much, but is there. So yeah, on your way to this this bridge where you're told that Mai recently headed out to with these armed soldiers, it's kind of like a windy and gray ride until you reach the outer area of this stone bridge, and it's just like endless fields of white flowers. It's called pampas grass. So then, yeah, you just listen to what's happening on the bridge from the pampas grass. So you crouch, you hide, and it's 4 straw hats with Mai. And Mai is telling them that she's going to sell all the items. And the Straw Hats say that it's too late and that she has to bring the items to him. And they're like, talking about whoever's coordinating the conspiracy. And Mai says that she will pay the Straw Hats to leave the items with her, but they laugh in her face and say that she has no money. So she then offers them her comb. And she says that her comb is gold with pearl inlay. And Masako gets super offended because she said that she gave Mai that comb as a gift.
The Twisted Tale of Amanda Knox is coming to Hulu. In 2007, Amanda Knox was studying abroad in Italy. She had no idea her dream would turn into a nightmare. Inspired by the actual events of her wrongful conviction and 15-year fight for freedom, watch the new Hulu original series, The Twisted Tale of Amanda Knox, on August 20th. Streaming on Hulu and Hulu on Disney Plus for bundle subscribers. Terms apply.
When the McLaren F1 team counts on speed, they count on Dropbox Dash. Dash finds what you need fast across all your work apps so you can focus on what matters. Learn more at dropbox.com/McLaren F1.
So again, that's an interesting sign right there of like, that's quite a nice gift to give, a servant. And it's oddly sentimental. So that's interesting. So yeah, then the Straw Hats, get annoyed and they say no, and, that he will kill them, and that, then they order her to take them to the heirlooms. So then they start moving out, and they're like walking uphill through this big field, and you start following them through the pampas grass, fields over the hills. And so the quest is to eliminate the Straw Hats as you go without alerting anyone. So I just want to say, I messed this quest up so many times because it's so easy, but it's another kind of dumb and funny quest where it's like there's 4 guys walking with Mai, and then as you're walking through this field, one of the guys will just split off, and you stealth assassinate them, and then they keep walking for a while, and 2 guys split off, and you stealth assassinate them, and you're not allowed to kill them too quickly. You have to just wait till they split off. And no one throughout this whole time, they walk for a while, and no one throughout this whole time is like, oh, where's our guys disappearing from one by one? But just another video game thing. So yeah, then you eventually arrive at this well with a burnt out small house. And then you run out and you confront them, and there's only one Ronin left at this point, and then there's more who show up at this house. So you clear the Straw Hats, not a super hard fight. Masako helps you, and Lady Masako then says that she has to speak with Mai after you've cleared them all. And right away the conversation is very emotional, and Masako says how could you betray us, she says to Mai, and she's asking her that. And Mai says that Masako betrayed her by turning her away. And Mai is clearly, just for context for y'all, Mai is much younger than Masako. It's not she's not a child, but there's clearly an age difference between them of 10 to 20 years maybe. And Masako says that she saved her by not having Lord Adachi have her flogged or worse. And Mai then says, well, you should have left with me. And Masako says that I was the lady of Clan Adachi and you became a thief with what you did. Like, I can't just leave to go with you. So then, and this is where things get very interesting in this quest, Mai says that she still loves Masako. And Masako says, tell me if that's true, then tell me who killed my family. And Mai says that she's afraid of getting killed. So then the cutscene ends. So yeah, I mean, definitely confirms what we thought, that they had a romantic relationship with each other, that Mai and Masako did. Now that was really fascinating context. And again, I love how they've done romance in this game, where generally speaking it's subtle, and I felt like this was just an incredible characterization, for Masako Adachi here. And again, it just adds more to the world, gives you insights onto how relationships would exist, and just the types of things that would happen in life. And, it's likely that Lord Adachi was often away. He wasn't present. That would be hard on Lady Masako. So I just thought this was a really cool thing to add in. So, yeah, then Mai agrees to take them to the heirlooms, and then you start walking with her, and it's a pretty short walk. And so Mai then tells you everything she knows. And she says that she doesn't know the name of the guy who contacted her and who's coordinating the conspiracy and has never seen his face. But Mai says he communicates only through notes and that he knew about us, talk about her and Masako. And he says that he knew what it was like to love you and understood her pain. So this is the person coordinating the conspiracy, clearly manipulating Mai and saying, I understand your pain. I know what it's like to love them and love the Masako family and, be exiled, basically. So again, very interesting. And Jin then asks, Jin clearly doesn't get what's happening at this point, and Jin asks what's going on, and Masako basically stutters about the romantic relationship with Mai. And Mai then says that the person coordinating the conspiracy was anxious about the heirlooms being broken, and says that at first they wonder if the person coordinating the conspiracy wants to sell the items. And Masako says that the items are sentimental and that they have no real value. So this is really interesting. And Mai then says that he was possessive of the items in the notes and acted like they belonged to him. So then you arrive at this big shrub in the middle of the field, and there's a small chest. And so Masako and Mai are talking while you go get the items from the chest. And basically all you get from that are the Adachi family flute and 25 supplies. And, there's presumably more items, but that's all you see that you get in your inventory. And so when you return to talk to Masako about it, Mai has left. And Masako tells you that she let Mai go and that Mai has gone home. And Masako then wants to explain to Jin, and she's clearly just a little nervous on what Jin might think. And Jin just says that she doesn't owe him any explanation. And, she says that she always cared for her husband, but that she cared for Mai too. And she says that she always will. And Masako says that, she has, when they're trying to figure out who the conspirator is, she says that she had no other romances or admirers throughout her life. And so it doesn't make any sense for someone to have felt so hurt by her. And so Jin then says that the conspirator might be faking sympathy with each person to get them to help. So I definitely thought that was really fascinating. And I'll say more about that because we're about to start the final quest for this episode and for the Masako storyline in Act 2. And I'll have more on that at the end of that. So yeah, I thought that was a good quest all in all. I thought that was really good emotionally. You get some more characterization on Masako. You meet a new character. And, there was some decent combat, and I thought the field of Pampas Grass was very beautiful. So the final quest is called The Conspirator. And so you meet Masako at the Kushi Graveyard in Kushi Prefecture. And you arrive to find Masako with a monk on his knees, and she's threatening to kill him. And this is in the middle of the road, and there's two other peasants just cowering right there. And so you ride up, and Jin is Masako, what are you doing? and so then she's saying that the monk has information but she won't talk, and Jin says, good cop, all right, let me do this please. So he tells Masako to stop beating on these people, and the monk is very glad to see Jin. And so then the monk says that Junshin was helping people at Red Leaf Temple, but he hears that the Mongols raided it. So yeah, they're tracking down Junshin. So then you talk with Masako, and Masako says that Junshin is in on the plot. And I thought that was really fascinating. And Jin is very skeptical of this because he says, like, well, Junshin's just been helping refugees and his name wasn't on the list. So Masako says that she found a note for Junshin at the temple that was the same as the others. I don't know if she means Omi Temple or the Golden Temple from Act 1, but that's what she says. And she says that he was promised supplies for his relief camps that he's been running, and in exchange for information on Masako's whereabouts. And I gotta say, like, so Jin then says that Junshin, like, says that it's just an offer and doesn't prove anything. And Masako says that it proves that he has contact with the leader of the conspiracy. And so Jin says, okay, we're going to talk to Junshin and figure this out. And Masako reluctantly agrees, and this is where the quest starts. I just have to say, I thought in this moment, I thought Jin was being an idiot. I mean, like, yeah, I mean, I guess it could be an offer, but it's like, he clearly knows who this is. Like, someone is asking for information about Lady Masako, and Junshin knows that this whole storyline has been going on, so it's like, he should probably have said something, before this moment. So then you ride out for Red Leaf Temple, and Masako says that she will deal with Junshin. And Jin says, we are going to talk to Junshin, Masako. This is another delivery I just thought was funny. It's like, Masako, we're not cutting people down, all right? It's like you're trying to train your dog. It's like, no, Masako, don't cut people down. So then Masako gets mad about the talking part and asks Jin if he talked with his father's killer. And Masako says that Lord Shimura tracked down, Kazumasa's killer and took his head. And Jin doesn't have that much to say to that. But so you keep riding and you end up at a narrow path through this forest where civilians are running away screaming. And then you see bloodstains on the road, and you enter Atsuna Prefecture. You come upon some Mongols killing civilians, and you have to clear them. And so basically you're now at the temple grounds. And a cutscene shows a bunch of dead bodies, and, the Mongols are dead, and Jin is saying, like, oh my god, killing people in the temple grounds, like, that's just totally disgraceful. And Masako basically only cares about finding Junshin. So then you roll out to the temple, you arrive to find tons of Mongols, and Masako wants to attack head on, and Jin wants to use stealth. You hear Junshin inside the Red Leaf Temple as a captive, and Red Leaf Temple just seems like it's been, like, burned, and there's a lot of damage that's been done. You clear the Mongols, not a ton of them, and so then you get this cutscene where you're freeing Junshin. You cut him free, and he's, like, injured, and you're, like, carrying him out of this building. So then as you get outside, he's like super injured, and then an arrow flies by him and grazes his face, and then it's Masako, and Jin says, like, what are you doing? And Masako wants to kill him right then and there, and Jin says no, and Jin says that if they fight each other then the Mongols win, and Masako says that the Mongols have already won. And then she throws her bow down and pulls out her sword, and you start a duel with Lady Masako. I gotta say, I could not believe this. This was a crazy twist to me. I was like, dude, we're on the same side. Like, really? I mean, and so then, like, you beat her in the duel. It's not a super hard duel, but, and they have the lines that they're saying back and forth. Jin saying, like, you were my friend, like, we shouldn't be fighting. And so then, like, after you beat her, you get a cutscene where she's on her knees and Jin gives her sword back to her. And then a second wave of Mongols show up, and then you clear them. Then you get a cutscene of Jin and Masako talking. Jin is incredibly angry. I would be too. And, that he feels she went back on her word of not killing Junshin, and that's kind of true. And then they argue about it, and she ends up asking him, like, what he would feel toward Ryuzo. And I like the way she said Ryuzo. She said his name like Yuzo, basically. And I wondered about pronunciation, if both are, if both work for that. But Jin then says that they can't let anger blind them. Yeah, I'd have to say, I kind of thought this was all a little bit dumb. Like, first of all, you don't want to kill Junshin because you want to get his information. So that's dumb. But then, like, fighting each other, like, I just thought that was ridiculous. But yeah, and Masako is basically saying, like, like, all I saw is the person who killed my family, and like you were standing in his way defending him, and I just lost my temper. And yeah, so pretty heavy scene, but then you're back on the same side. And what you have to do is you start investigating the area, and you find Junshin's tracks leading into the woods nearby. And Masako says, like, you know, like Jin says, let me talk to Junshin, and Masako says, oh, so you don't trust me. And then you get a dialogue choice that is, the choice is straight up no. It's literally no, I don't trust you. And Junshin won't trust you and you want him to talk. So if you say no, it's, you know, not yet, but letting me talk first will help. Like, you know, you kind of say the same things in these choices, generally speaking. And Masako says he only needs his tongue to talk. I love her energy on this. I'm terribly sad for everything she went through, but the way she just, you know, does not give a beep going through this is so funny. So Junshin, you eventually track Junshin. He's hiding under this big rock. And so Junshin tells you that the person who offered him supplies is named Lady Hana. And Masako can't believe this. She like gasps, and she's like totally stunned and upset. She calls him a liar, and she says that Lady Hana visited him 2 nights ago wearing a crimson kimono and a golden sash, and that she smelled of chrysanthemum. So Masako yells and calls him a liar and says that that is her sister. And so then they tell Junshin to beat it. And then, you know, Jin and Masako start talking, and Masako starts crying. And it's an incredibly sad and emotional scene. And, you know, then Masako says that that's my sister, and she says to meet her in Kamiyagata, and that's the Act 3 region. And that's the end of the quest. So, yeah, I mean, all in all, I actually thought that was a pretty good quest. The fighting the Mongols was pretty cool. I thought the duel with Lady Masako was really cool. The setting was really cool for that. I just think, you know, like, if you actually dueled someone with a samurai, with, like, a katana, just realize, like, you have scars on your body for life. Like, if you get cut with a katana on your arm, that is a scar you have for life. So it's not a small thing to just casually duel someone and then be like, oh, okay, we hashed it out. But I thought that was, and then what a twist. Oh my God. I thought this was a crazy twist that Lady Masako's sister, who at this point you haven't heard anything about the sister. You know nothing about her. You didn't even really know she has a sister. So the fact that her sister would be the lead conspirator behind all this is so crazy. And it also tells you just how much, you know, like cunning the sister must have to like pose as like a male samurai, like manipulating each individual person, playing on their individual, you know, falling out with the Adachis to get them to help her. And it makes a lot of sense about how she would have all this inside information about the Adachi family and why she would want those sentimental items, because they actually are sentimental to her too. So I just thought this was actually a fantastic twist, and just a really, really great twist on the story. There's only one quest left in this story in Act 3, and so we'll wrap that up in the Act 3 mainline story episodes. So yeah, I mean, all in all, I thought these 8 quests were all pretty good. The Yuna storylines were pretty impactful. The Masako storylines are impactful. I really liked the part with Mai in that, with you know, the Masako stories, and I just continue to be impressed with this game, the stuff that they put into it. So I hope all of you enjoyed this episode. If you have any thoughts, hey, drop it in the comments on the Spotify episodes. You can leave us 5-star reviews on the Apple Podcast Store or on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. It's much appreciated. And you can join the Robots Radio Discord if you want to join our Discord channel and chat with us. You can reach out on Blue Sky. Check the show notes for links on all this. Hey, y'all, reach out. I'm down to talk some Ghost of Tsushima, Ghost of Yotei. So I want to thank you all for listening, and I'll leave you with this. If anyone comes across Lady Masako out there, I would highly suggest that y'all do your best to stay on her good side.